Well, welcome. My name is Tim McKee. I'm the CEO of the Olathe Chamber of Commerce, and I'd like to welcome you today to our regularly scheduled Zoom call. We are doing this Zoom call a little early, just because of the current situation information that we're trying to get out to you today. Today we have with us Trent Armbrust, the Director of Strategy for Bioscience and Technology. Trent is going to talk to us today a little bit about a loan program that the state has and some CARES Act funds that are going to be distributed to a number of different categories here within the state. And Trent's going to talk about that. If you have any questions during our presentation, please feel free to ask those in the Q&A portion of Zoom, and we will try and get to you as quickly as we can. So with that, let me introduce Trent, and then he can get started. Trent comes to Commerce following 7 years in economic development for the Manhattan Area Chamber of Commerce. He's an active member of several economic development, bioscience, and community organizations. Armbrust earned his bachelor degree in biology and master's degree in plant physiology from Kansas State University and is a graduate from the Economic Development Institute at the University of Oklahoma. So Trent, welcome, and please take it away.
Thank you, Tim and Susie, for hosting this, and thank you for everyone participating today. I'm going to share my screen and go through the website so we can go in order of some of the programs. And again, please use the Q&A if you have any questions, and we'll try to jump to those. So let me get my screen shared. Okay. Can everyone see that?
Yes.
All right. So this is the Commerce webpage. So if you go to kansascommerce.gov, and then it'll say back to business at the top, and you click for more information, and that's how you get to this. Just some background information so we're all on the same page. This money came to us through the CARES Act funding. And again, Kansas got roughly $1.2 billion. And then of that $1.2 billion, about $100 million went directly to Johnson County, and $100 million went directly to Sedgwick County. And that was due to federal statute of if you have a population above 500,000, then you got a direct disbursement. So that the remaining $1 billion was left to disperse by the state. And so the SPARK office, or the Office of Recovery, was established. And the first $400 million was dispersed to the counties. The counties received those monies, as you're all familiar with that, in July. And so now this money that we're talking about today is the round two funding. The round two funding is about $300 million that's going to the various agencies in the state to disperse out to businesses, hospitals, universities, all those different entities. The Department of Commerce specifically got roughly $130 million. Of that $130 million, $60 million of that is earmarked for broadband. And so there's two broadband programs. One is for infrastructure, and the other one is for helping those who are in low to moderate income categories connect to the internet during this crisis. And so those programs are going to be driven through community and ISPs, or internet service providers, and those are being evaluated through a process that involves professional engineering reviews and all those things. So that's a program that was set up very different than the programs I'm going to talk about today. The other part of this that I just want to make sure everyone's aware of is that we are following the Treasury guidelines. And so those are what dictate everything that we do with the SPARK money. And so if you need to go to that, I'm going to click over to a web page. You can see the address at the top. It's treasury.gov, and then it's CARES, state and local government. And we can post that as well if needed. But if you go to the bottom, there is a coronavirus relief frequently asked questions, and that's dated August 10th. So when you see the stipulation must follow Treasury guidelines, this is the document you want to go to. This is the document that spells out all the restrictions on the use of the funds. To summarize this document, the expenditure has to be due to the public health emergency. And it's for expenses that have already been incurred or that will be incurred to handle the current crisis. The other part of this that everyone asks about is the December 30th date. Treasury has not given us any additional guidance beyond what they've published, which is the funds must be expended by December 30th of 2020. There has been no grace period established. The grace period that was in there has been removed in the last round of the frequently asked questions. And so we are currently tied until we see direction from Congress that the money must be expended by December 30th. And the question always comes, does that mean encumbered? That is not the interpretation that we've been given. It is the funds must be expended by December 30th. So just want to go over some of those big picture items. And the other question that we get asked a lot about now is there's $300 million remaining of the CARES Act money that the SPARK committee is now going through the process of what are their priorities for that the additional $300 million. And so we don't have an answer to that yet, and that should be coming out shortly. So today we're going to focus on the monies that were allocated to the Department of Commerce for some of their programs. Specifically in the economic development programs, we have $61.5 million. Half of that is for small business grants. So that's either working capital or PPE loans or PPE grants. We don't have any loans in this, and they're all grants. And the reason why we have no loans is under the Treasury guidance, any money that is paid back from a loan must then go back to the federal government. And so we would be responsible for collecting that money and then sending the check back. And so everything is being done on a grant basis. Any questions at this point that anyone has that I haven't seen anything pop up? Do we have anything, Susie?
Trent, not yet. We have a number before, but nothing as of yet. But
okay.
I'm sure we will.
And just a second, I'm going to expand my screen here. All right. So the small business, I'm going to start going through our programs. And again, please send your questions in. So if you go to our website, the first one I'm going to touch on are the small business working grants, capital grants. This is targeted for businesses that have 500 or fewer employees. And it is really for that business interruption. So due to COVID-19. And to do that, you need to show a loss of 25% or more. And we'll get into that as we go through this. So expand that open. You can see the eligibility requirements on the screen. In operation since July 1, good standing Secretary of State. It goes into the demonstrated loss of 25% gross revenue. Those dates have been altered since this was originally published last Wednesday. And so it's now the same time period a year ago as it was as this year. So it's the first 2 quarters of each year that you're comparing. We are going to ask for a little short business plan of how you're going to spend the funds. The criteria of the $350,000 in prior COVID-related assistance is the maximum. So if you've received more than $350,000, that includes PPP, then you're not eligible. But there is a way to appeal that if you feel like that your case is unique. And so that option does exist. And the other part is you can't duplicate any expenses paid for by previous COVID-related funding. I'm going to go into the application now. Again, these applications are available for viewing right now, but you cannot submit them until noon today. The question, so you'll see you have to answer various questions. There are for women, minority, and disadvantaged business enterprises and veteran enterprises, a 10% addition to your award if you're in one of those classifications. So that is why that question is being asked. And that money will be awarded as long as there's some available. I think the question that I'm going to jump down to, so you can see the DUNS number and Social Security, and yes, this is a secure platform that we're using to collect all this information. And I'm going down.
Trent.
Yes.
So we do have a question. Is the 500 employees company-wide or only in Kansas?
Location.
Okay, by location.
So when you go down the form and you get to business information and you go to business activity, there's a drop-down box, and these are all the different categories that are in our program. So for instance, if you are a professional business services, you'll click on that, and then if you scroll down the screen, you can see what your maximum amount is, award amount, and that's, so for that category, it's $20,000. For most categories, it's $20,000 is the maximum. I'll roll back up and show another example. If you are a manufacturer and you apply under this category, then your maximum award amounts are based on the number of employees. So up to fewer than 100 employees, 20,000, 35,000, 50,000 are the categories. The other question that comes in here is, can I apply for more than one program? Meaning, can I also apply for the PPE grants as well as the working capital? And that question is yes. But you have to fill out 2 different applications. So you do have to fill out multiple applications if you're going to apply for multiple programs. So you pick your business type, and then again, that will show you what your maximum is. Another one that's going to be popular is the restaurant and hospitality. And then you scroll down and you can see that the maximum award there is $20,000 as well. So hopefully that answers the question on how to look up what your maximum award is. Each one has a different award amount. And so just want to make everyone aware of how you can find that information. Any questions on the working capital grants? Again, these are meant to offset loss of revenue due to the COVID-19 public health emergency.
Trent, a few questions that I might ask you. There's one provision that states that you have to show that you've lost 25% during, can you talk about a certain time frame? Can you talk about that? And then the question that a lot of people are having is that if you don't show that you've lost 25% within that time frame, but you expect to lose that or more the rest of the year, should you apply or should you not apply, or are there exceptions? And can you talk to that?
That's where you can fill in the appeal portion in this box that I'm highlighting right here. So if you say, hey, yeah, I'm a seasonal business and I expect because of the COVID crisis that I will lose more revenue, I'll lose over 25% in the coming months, then you can write that in at that point, and that'll be considered then. So I would still apply, but at this point, again, a lot of this is driven by the Treasury guidance, which says you have to show an existing versus future losses.
And Trent, what is that?
We set the 25%, by the way, Tim. That was our criteria.
Okay. Can you talk about that time frame? Isn't it the first 6 months of this year versus the last 6 months?
On the screen right here, you can see the dates. It's January 1 through June 30th, 2019 versus January 1st to June 30th of this year.
Okay. Thank you.
Yep.
Another question, Trent, on this on this portion. If a lot of questions about whether or not if a company took a PPP loan through the federal government, can they still apply for this? And can you talk about that and the limit?
Yes, if they applied for PPP loan and they received one, as long as it did not exceed $350,000, they are still eligible. There is an appeal if you feel like there is a case in which you should be able to exceed that. But the rule is if you've exceeded $350,000 in any CARES Act support, at this point, you're ineligible.
Okay. And Trent, does that limit, let's say you took 200 and, or just right below that, does that limit the amount that you would be able to receive then?
No, okay. That's a criteria eligibility.
Okay.
So it's not we're not going to look at it and say, oh, they got 295,000.
So they're only going to get 5. Okay.
Right.
Okay. Another question. If you're a new business, can you apply? What is the guidelines in regard to that? Let's say
Yep.
you started January 1 of this year.
And we're going to go, so I'm back on the main page on my screen, and there is a small business and connectivity frequently asked questions. And I'm going to click on that link. And it goes through how can you calculate FTEs. And I'm missing the one that says to answer your question. This is one that we get asked a lot about. It's not the question you just asked him, but while I'm here,
Yeah, sure.
Are grant awards taxable? And the answer from the Treasury and the IRS is yes, because these are grants.
Okay.
And therefore they accept unless you're Indian tribe or Indian. And so that is an answer. And you can see the link to the IRS guidance is right on the FAQ page.
Okay. The other one that I just saw that is another question that's asked quite a bit is how can the money be spent, or are there certain criteria that they can spend the money or the grant on?
So the grant is meant to, the working capital grant is meant to be exactly that, working capital that that is filling in. You're getting a grant to fill in the loss of revenue due to the COVID crisis. So you need to show that, yeah, you've had that 25% loss of revenue, and that you're using this grant to offset specific expenses that you incurred due to the public health emergency and are now a burden because of the lost revenue.
So Trent, can that be employee salaries,
yes.
rent?
Yep. Yes. Oh. It cannot be for taxes. That's the only.
Got it. But very similar to the PPP loans in that it can be used for rent and for employee salaries and yep. things like that. Okay.
And it says at the top of the small business working capital grant paid application, there are examples such as payroll, rent, mortgage, insurance, utilities, inventory, to give a flavor of how the money can be used.
Okay.
I have a few questions.
Yes, Susan.
Can the application be pre-filled? Or can you talk about it cannot be pre-filled? So at 12 o'clock, they have to go on and fill it out. Is that correct? Or
there is, yes, you're going to, well, the way we intended the system to work out is, yes, you would need to fill it out once it goes live.
Okay.
We are using a platform for this, and therefore, currently this page, there's no way to submit this application that's currently posted.
Okay. And then another question I got, and I think we can talk about the appeal section, but what if the business did not open until the second half of 2019? The business was official, but took several months to open and begin getting revenue. No revenue was received until the third quarter. Is that where you recommend going in and kind of filling in that appeals portion of it? Or?
Yes.
Okay. And explaining that, I'm guessing?
Yes. And again, I'm not sure why I'm not finding the, because I know we posted it. And I will get back to you if I don't have that answer. If I don't find that answer while we're still on here.
Okay. Trent, I'm not finding, or I'm not seeing any other questions. If you'd like to,
okay,
move on, or
I will continue on. All right, so the next one that is out, the next program is Securing Local Food Systems Grants. This is really intended to shore up the direct-to-consumer food supply chain. And therefore, this is a program that is looking at grocery stores, You see meat processors, food banks. So anything that is a direct-to-consumer related to food systems is here. This program is being administered by the Kansas Department of Agriculture in cooperation with the Kansas Department of Commerce. And so I'm happy to go into this in further detail, but I may skip down to the PPE procurement grants next, because that would probably be most relevant to most of your businesses. Is that okay?
Yeah, let me ask you one question in regard to the
Yeah.
last. Does that apply to restaurants or not?
No, the restaurants are in the small business working capital grant.
Okay. So, I mean, I knew that there had been a lot of questions in regard to can they apply for a grant through this as well, because it's food related, but.
Right. And you can see the, it's really for that producer or the meat locker or the food pantry or the farmer's market or that type of entity, or grocery stores.
Okay.
Is the intent of this program.
Got it.
Oops, I went too far back. All right, PPE procurement grants. This is to assist for-profit and not-for-profits to acquire PPE for their employees or their customers. This is awarded on a $100 per FTE, and the maximum amount is $10,000 per business. You can apply for this PPE grant and the working capital grants that we went over already.
And Trent, how can you explain what can and can't be purchased and that type of thing, and just give some examples of that?
Sure. So this is this would be hand sanitizer, safety shields, face masks. If you had to make some workplace redesign in order to accommodate the social distancing, so those type of things, signage. In some cases, people have purchased and deployed new technology to allow for contactless payments or things like that. So it's anything that helped with public safety through the purchase of actual equipment or redesigns of your workspace. And
Trent, you know, some counties and cities our county and city has not done this yet, but if they are getting CARES funds, you know, from the state and then passing them through, or directly like Sedgwick County and Johnson, and they have a similar type program, can they apply for both programs or dollars through each, through the county and through the state, or does one?
No, they can, as long as they don't exceed this $350,000 total awards for CARES Act, and you cannot expend. You cannot use this. You can't double dip. So if you spent $10,000 total on PPE in your business, and you get $10,000 from the state and $10,000 from the county, that's double dipping. So it has to be. You'd have to have $20,000 total in expenditures for PPE in order to receive the $20,000, the 10 from each, in my example.
Got it. Makes sense. Okay. So the application is very similar. It's not.
Yeah, it's similar, and it's actually simpler than the working capital grants.
Okay.
Because this is formula based, and this is like the other one. It's first in, first out, as long as you meet the eligibility requirements.
Okay.
And Trent,
So, go ahead.
I was gonna say, you see this once it's opened up. You see this probably going at a rapid rate. Is that correct? Or
yes, and I think our guidepost for this is the hires fund that we did earlier in the COVID crisis, and where we had a $5 million fund for hospitality industry businesses, and that $5 million was gone in less than 24 hours, and we made 333 awards, and we had a total of 1,800 applicants. And that was on a program that was advertised for basically 48 hours. So we anticipate a similar demand across the state for these, or higher demand, since there's been more notice.
And Trent, is it basically first come, first serve until the money is gone, or how will that work?
Yes, as long as you meet the eligibility requirements, then yes, and on the working capital, there is a small description of how you're going to spend your money and your kind of a mini business plan that will be reviewed and given this is a complete thought and business plan, or this is not. So it's not that you're comparing among business plans, it's an eligibility requirement scoring. Okay, so those are the two big small business programs. I already mentioned the Connectivity Emergency Response Grant and the Partnership Adoption Grant for Broadband. Again, this is for the infrastructure of putting fiber into the ground, and then this is for the assistance for low-income individuals in Kansas. The PPE Manufacturing Grants is directed towards organizations that are actually manufacturing PPE or medical-related devices, supplies that will help with this current crisis. So this one is going to be, you'll apply, and then these will actually be batched and scored. So this is not a first in, first out program. And so the company will need to demonstrate, this is our plan, this is the product line that we're adding to make face masks or face shields or swabs or tubes or whatever the case may be. And then, how does this fit into their business plan? And it is for manufacturers of PPE. And the awards there, these awards go up much higher into the hundreds of thousands, depending on the manufacturing, and these will be merit-based awards.
And Trent, how much is in that bucket of funds for that?
Roughly, I think $12 million is in this bucket.
Okay.
If I recall correctly.
Okay.
I'm doing this live, but I can't say don't quote me on that, but I'm going to say don't quote me on that one. But it's roughly in that area.
Okay.
Bioscience and Product Development Acceleration Grant. This is recognizing that we have bioscience companies in Kansas that are actively working on therapeutics and diagnostics, medical countermeasures related to the SARS-CoV-2 virus or COVID-19. And so this will be a program that first hires an outside consultant to help develop an RFP, and then that consultant will review those RFPs and give awards to some of our bioscience companies in Kansas. And this goal is to quickly accelerate product development and go to market of that technology that our bioscience companies are developing as relates to the COVID-19. And then there's another element of this in which the 6 public universities can also apply to advance some of their research and development and diagnostic capabilities as well. The next program is the Domestic Supply Chain Fortification Grant. Got a little crazy on that title, but this is really intended to help with onshoring, reshoring of medical and other supply chain related businesses to set up or expand manufacturing in Kansas. And so this doesn't have to be just 100% medical related. This can be food related, but again, this is going back towards the manufacturing side and how do we assist with that fortification of our domestic supply chain so that we are not caught with these supply chain distributions in the future. And this again will be based on merit and will be much more of a process, more like an incentive program as far as the process of evaluating jobs created and capital investment. And again, with both of these, with the PPE manufacturing and the domestic supply chain grants, the money still has to be spent by December 30th. So these have to be shovel-ready, immediate projects that we can launch as soon as the funds become available.
So Trent, a question that,
Yes.
that raises the funds that a small business would receive. Is that the same requirement that they have to have that grant spent by the end of the year? Is that the same
Correct.
scenario?
Okay. All of these dollars must be spent by December 30th.
Okay.
No matter what program you're in.
Okay.
The next program of interest, and I know I've visited with institutions in your county, higher education, advanced manufacturing, IT equipment grants. We recognize that workforce training is really, really critical across the state of Kansas. We have a high unemployment across the state, specifically in those areas affected by with manufacturing layoffs, but also in the professional and technical arenas. And so recognizing the need to train thousands and thousands of Kansans, and also recognizing that estimates are between 20 to 40% of the jobs that they left will not be there, will not come back. As far as the same position will not exist when that company starts to rehire. So we have a lot of displaced workers that we need to quickly pivot their skill sets to high demand skills that will give them a long-term future in a new career field. And so the last two programs that we have on the slide here, the Higher Education, Advanced Manufacturing, IT Equipment Grants, this is a recognition that if we don't have the latest technology in our training programs, it's hard to train people to go out into the workforce and be productive. And so this one is to quickly provide some grant assistance to I said quickly again, to rapidly upgrade our training programs and get those individuals who have been affected, furloughed or laid off due to the COVID-19 crisis into those programs so that we can reskill them and they can participate in some of the growing job market that exists in Kansas. And so that's an advanced manufacturing and IT, those two realms, we know that there's still a lot of demand. The other part is the last program is the IT, cybersecurity, and IT project management certification grant. This is very specific. We're looking for a training partner who will train 1,000 people by December 30th. And those individuals that are trained will earn a certificate in one of four areas. It's, entry-level IT, IT project management, cybersecurity, and then I'm just dropped the last one. Oh, the infrastructure. So you've got project management, basic, your entry-level IT, and then your cybersecurity. So these are very targeted training, very rapid training program, and therefore we're looking for a training partner that can execute this program by December 30th. And again, the goal is to get individuals into the workforce with these high demand skills.
Okay. Trent, couple of questions. I assume you're done with all these sections. Yep. Mainly back to the small business working capital grants. First off, how soon do you expect, if a company applies today when the portal opens at noon, how long will it be before a company will hear back from the state as to whether or not they've received a grant?
We do not have a definitive date. This is something that, our programs and our awards will be monitored by the Recovery Office. And so we have there's an oversight there regarding our processes and the awards that we'll give out. And therefore, some of this is dependent on our internal review, but then also our communication and oversight by the Recovery Office. So we don't have a date yet. And then also the Recovery Office has hired an outside firm to help monitor the programs, and therefore we're working with them as well. And that firm has just come online. So we don't have a definitive date for notice of award.
Okay. Also, Trent, can you talk a little bit about the portal? And this is one of the questions that we received. Will the portal be able to handle the amount of traffic that will be coming in from companies applying? Have you done anything to beef that up?
Yes, we have for the last few weeks beefed it up. So there's two elements at play here. is our website at the Department of Commerce. We have beefed up the capacity to handle traffic to our website. And then the company that we've worked with to do the online applications, they have handled very large application periods like this in the past. So we have two different servers that are in play here. Both, this has been discussed with both, and we are hopeful that all of our efforts will be able to accommodate the traffic that's going to come in at noon today.
Trent, will there be a notice as to when the funds will be expended? I assume that if you're not granting the funds or notifying people that they've been awarded, it may be a week, and or two maybe before we hear whether or not we've received a grant, and then secondly, whether or not the portal then would be closed, I assume.
Yeah, the portal will stay open because some programs will have a longer application period than the working capital grants. And so we'll take down, once the funds have been expended in a category, that will come off the site. And so you'll be aware of that. Just a sec.
And Trent,
right here, yeah.
Go ahead.
I was just showing where the FAQ is about notification and review, and we don't have any dates up.
Okay. And Trent, I know you said this, but how much in this particular grant, how much is there to fund for small business?
It's $32.5 million for small business grants.
Okay.
And that, again, keep in mind, that's for across the state of Kansas. So that's all 105 counties.
Okay. And I want to follow up on that question because we actually had someone ask it, and I want to make sure. In order for them to see what each grant is allocated, they can go into the application and click on the grant, and it'll tell them the maximum amount. Is that correct?
Yeah, if they pick on the working capital, when they select business type, if you click on that and then scroll down, you'll see what your maximum grant amount is. Again, I want to highlight the FTE calculations on the FAQs if people have questions about that, especially for the PPE grants.
Okay.
And then what was the other part of that question, Susie?
Basically, they were just asking how much was allocated for each different grant.
Right. So here's a summary on the FAQs as well. So again, under the small business working capital grants, when you go to the application, you select business type, you select the type of business that you are, and then scroll down and you will see the maximum award amount. And I can demonstrate that again. Under the food system grants, this is a brief summary. Again, there's more detail in the application. Grocery stores up to 125,000, meat process, things like that. Again, the PPE procurement grants, $100 per FTE. Maximum award is $10,000. Women and minority veteran-owned businesses, that is where the 10% of the award amount will be added to either the small business working capital grant or the securing local food systems grants.
Thank you.
And again, I'll just demonstrate one more time. When you go into business activity, under business information, I'm under the business, this is the working capital grants application. Under business activity, if you pick an activity, so I'll pick a different one this time. If we do retail, scroll down, and you can see what your maximum amounts are for retail.
Trent, there was another question. On this grant application, there is no restrictions on certain types of businesses, like, for instance, a 501c6 can apply, correct? I mean, you can be a C Corp or a small business, or there isn't any restrictions on eligibility, is there?
So I'm showing the who is eligible for each grant, and you can find it, but our C3s, yes, C6s, yes, sole proprietors, yes, and franchises are eligible.
Okay.
And for you specifically, Tim and Susie, there is a category for nonprofits and C6s. We know those were excluded in some of the other CARES Act, and therefore chambers and economic development organizations, there is a pool of money available for those type of organizations as well.
Okay. All right. Well, Trent, I think you've answered a lot of the questions that we've heard from our members, and I know this is coming at people very rapidly. But I think you know, most of those questions have been answered, like what companies are eligible, how much money is out there, when does this need to be done, can you apply for multiple grants, and it sounds like that is the case, and how much, and how is that money to be spent, which sounds like it's very similar to a PPP loan in that it can be used for rent, for salaries, those type of things as well too.
Yes. And Tim, I want to highlight when this ends, if people still have additional questions, here's how you can, there's an email address, backtobusiness@ks.gov. And then we also have a chat feature online right now that is being staffed. You can see the hours. And so if you want, you can use that chat feature as well. And we have Department of Commerce employees manning that are watching that chat feature during these times. And they're very good at responding to questions.
Well, the grant application seems very short, which is nice. And so you would suggest that anyone that has any questions get online and ask during the chat, but to fill out the application and get it in as soon as possible.
Especially on the working grants and the PPE, those two, and the food system grants, you need to get those in. If you're a business that's interested in one of those programs, you need to get that in as soon as possible.
Okay.
Because everything will be time stamped as it's received.
Okay. Well, Trent, the grants I know are much needed for a lot of businesses here in the county. So we appreciate the state coming out with these grants. Well, we're not getting any more questions. So Trent, is there anything else that we need to discuss or that you can think of that we might have missed?
Well, I just appreciate everyone participating today, and I wish we could do more. We realize that this pool of money is not adequate to help all the businesses across the state of Kansas. And, you know, we recognize that a lot of small businesses are hurting in a tremendous way. And so we hope that this does help, but we know that more is needed, just so that everyone knows we are continually looking for new sources of funds to help our small businesses in Kansas, because we understand the importance of those small businesses to the future prosperity of Kansas, and that they are the fabric of our state. And so just, you know, we're trying, and we hope we can all work through this together, and we will continue to work with our federal delegation on leniency on the rules and regulations as it applies to CARES, and also work with them and provide them information as new incentive or new relief bills are considered.
Well, Trent, thank you for joining us today. And for those that are on this call, on the Zoom call, this is recorded. We will be posting this on our website. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out, obviously, to Trent or to our staff. And as I stated, all of this will be up there, including some of these questions as well too. So Trent, thank you very, very much for explaining this to us today. And we hope that our companies apply and receive some. So thank you very, very much.
My pleasure. And again, thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Have a good day.
All right. Bye-bye.
Thanks.